Okay, so this is a color-coded map of the human brain, and over the generations, scientists have identified what parts of the brain seem to be involved in different functions. Just to give you a quick example, if we go to the posterior part of the brain here, this is the back of the brain, and this area is involved in vision. Now, how do we know that type of thing? Well, if you lesion this area, people with damage to this area report blindness. If you stimulate this area, so you stick some electrodes in there and electrically stimulate this area, people report that they see things, little spots and so on, if you're doing area 17 here. And if you record from this area, when is this brain area active? Well, it's active when the person is awake and has eyes open and they're seeing stuff. So using techniques like that, the surface of the cerebral cortex has been mapped out, and you see the results of that research. Now, it is kind of weird. We said before that the frontal regions of the brain are involved in the executive control systems, but remember, we were sort of associating consciousness with this system here in our functional diagram. What we're attending to is what we are conscious of. The contents of working memory are what we're conscious of. It's the thought we're having, the scene that we're watching, right? The music we're hearing, or the emotion we're feeling, right? But that raises a question. Why is it that activity in some parts of the brain are conscious and activity in other parts of the brain doesn't reach consciousness? In other words, brains are made up of neurons, and these neurons, while there are different types of neurons and they release different neurotransmitters and so on, they operate in similar ways. But it seems that activity in certain neural circuits is associated with consciousness, being conscious of something, some feeling, some perception, some thought, whereas activity in other neural circuits is not associated with consciousness. We're not aware of that, and this is a profound mystery. Why is it that activity in some neural circuits achieves consciousness and activity in other neural circuits doesn't achieve consciousness? It's a major puzzle, and people are trying they're struggling with that, to conceptually get a grip on that. But let's move on here. Just a little recap of this distinction between controlled and automatic processes. So here we see another side view, right? This would be the left hemisphere, so the front of the brain is up here, the back of the brain is down here. And this is a kind of cartoon version of what the controlled processes amount to. So remember, controlled processes, we have introspective access to what's going on. We're conscious of it. It is serial in nature, and that is represented by this kind of a series of neural elements. These would be brain cells, for example. Here's the cell body, the axon, and the nerve terminal, and they release chemical transmitters and stimulate the next cell. And so here we have a series of neurons hooked up in a pathway, and so activity in this pathway would represent the sort of serial nature of our consciousness. So whatever is currently active within our introspective, our mind's eye, you might say, well, that's what we're conscious of. It takes effort, mental effort, right? These controlled processes, it is associated with effort. We have to expend, we have to pay attention, and that is effortful, to examine our consciousness, to introspect. And it's often triggered by questions, or we can ruminate and trigger it internally, but often there is some kind of deliberate trigger to some kind of introspective event. By contrast, the automatic systems, we can represent them in cartoonish way by these parallel pathways in the brain. So these neural elements can be processing information in parallel, but notice there is no introspection associated with the automatic systems, right? So they're not associated with sort of conscious, deliberate attentive functions. No effort required. They sort of automatically pop into mind, like 2 times 2 is 4, right? They automatically pop in there. Now, I put down here this structure called the amygdala is deep inside, it's inside the temporal lobes, so you have one on each side. It's a part of the emotional system of the brain, and some of these systems we can classify as automatic as well, because they can be triggered and then we'll feel an emotion, but it's not like we deliberately decided to have an emotion. They happen to us. Now, it is true that emotions can become conscious, right? We can have a feeling that we're aware of, but the triggering of that is often happening automatically. So we'll put some of the emotional systems in the automatic category as well.